The Golden Coast, so called by Europeans on account of its abundant and copious yield of gold things and treasures of nature, as also of successful minds.
Water symbolizes life itself. Today we are talking about water. Let's take a trip to the Kpong water treatment plant, which supplies water to the whole of Eastern Accra and Tema. It also supplies Kpong, Solmenya, Dodoa, Pram, and many other villages and towns.
The Kpong headworks is made up of two main installations. The old works constructed in 1930 and the new works built in 1966. Together, they produce an average of 44,000 million gallons of water per day. The Volta Lake, with its slow nature of flow, serves as the raw water source. The slow nature leads to natural sedimentation, which means the raw water is quite clean. The intake point is sited on the west bank of the Volta Lake, 17 kilometers downstream of the Akosombo Dam.
Welcome to Kpong Waterworks. At the moment, we are at the intake point where we take our raw water for pumping to Accra. We have two chambers, the southern chamber and then the northern chamber. Now, each chamber has a screw unit, which removes the weeds from the water before it gets to the sump. This is also a gate which has been put in place to also open the water to get to the sump.
Kpong Headworks is located almost about 54 kilometers from Tema, and is at the northeast part of Tema, precisely. Now, the raw water that we use, by our terminology, we used the water from River Volta. That's the River Volta is what we use for the processing. Now, because the River Volta has been dammed by VRA, we are more or less at the downstream part of the Volta Lake. So the quality of water that we abstract is very good. And because of that, we don't use much chemicals in our treatment process.
The raw water, which is passed through the screens, is lifted by these massive low lift pumps into a huge pipe and conveyed to the old and new works for treatment. This control room is manned around the clock to ensure the pumps are in good order all the time. Here, the steady hum is the only indicator of the vigorous pumping happening underneath. This is the mixing chamber. Water from the intake comes here before being distributed to the clarifiers. It is made up of two chambers. The first chamber receives water from the intake. The water is aerated at this point to reduce odors and also infused with chlorine gas to reduce the growth of algae. The water then flows into the second chamber where it undergoes further agitation and stirring to ensure thorough mixing.
Yeah, behind me is the circulator. It moves at a very slow speed. What it does is that it removes the dirt from the pre-chlorinated water.
Sedimentation takes place at the clarifiers, leading to the harvest of clear water at the top. The sediments formed are withdrawn with pumps, a process called dislodging. After clarification, there is filtration. There are 10 rapid gravity sand filters. The filters comprise fine sand on top and gravel at the bottom, supported underneath by nozzles. Thus, the settled water from the clarifiers is filtered of suspended particles, then collected into an underground reservoir for storage. To maintain the integrity of the filters, air blow machines are used to loosen the dirt, which is subsequently rinsed away by pumps using treated water. This process called backwashing is carried out on each filter every 72 hours. The filtered water flows into an underground tank where it is disinfected with chlorine to kill all bacteria present in the water. This is called post-chlorination. A percentage of chlorine, called residual chlorine, is retained in the final water to fight any bacterial intrusion into the water as it travels to the consumer.
We have a water quality control team, that's our laboratory control team, that works for 24 good hours on the plant. And what they do is to monitor the quality of water at every stage. For instance, if they take the raw water, they have to ascertain the pH of the raw water. When they come to the clarifiers, they have to ascertain the pH at the clarifier point, pH at the filtration point, and pH of the final water. So that if something happens, this water quality control unit would advise the operator on the plant exactly what to do so that the water leaving the plant becomes wholesome.
So what we do here is we monitor the water. Our work here is to put the chemical in the water, then test to see the levels of the chemical in the water to see whether the levels are within acceptable limits, so that when this water is finally pumped to the consumer in town, we do follow-ups to town to check up the levels of this chemical to ensure that the levels are not beyond the acceptable levels.
An integral part of this operation is the quality control unit. It is run by a dedicated unit who work around the clock.
The total production of Kpong Headworks is averagely 44 million gallons a day. Now, out of this, we have the new works production is around 36 million gallons, and the Savon, close to about 8 million gallons, is from the old works.
The high lift station, the master control room for the whole plant. From here, the power of 4 high lift pumps pump close to 37 million gallons of water daily to a booster station in Tema, from where it is redistributed to Tema and the eastern parts of Accra.
The Golden Coast, so called by Europeans on account of its abundant and copious yield of gold things and treasures of nature, as also of successful minds.
When the seasons are ripe to set ablaze the fires of our lives, I see my people lifting their lives again, shine or rain. Beloved, who Jojo, Abo, Abamo, you fit to Kunduma, watch it,